I have something absolutely awful to show you. Oh my god, look at that. Look at that. So last night, me and my girlfriend decided that, I decided that I wanted to cut my hair. So I got my shaver out, started shaving my hair. It looked so bad that my girlfriend had to kind of like try and save it as much as she could just by like cutting little bits off and stuff. I can't even explain how bad it was before she did this. And then obviously this is what it is like now after she saved it. So please no one laugh at me today. So bad. Oh my god. Look at that. Anyway, that's not what the video is about today. So following on from the last video, if you missed that, I basically built a hybrid skateboard setup and put it together. So today, this is like a little follow-up. I wanted to give a short review of the deck that I used in that setup. I've been skating this skateboard now for about 7 days, and I've skated it every single day at this park. If you didn't watch my last video and you don't know which deck this is a Madness deck. And it's the first Madness deck that I've ever skated. And like I said in the last video, I only found out about this brand maybe 2 months ago. This is the first time I've ever skated Madness, and the first time I'd really even seen much from them. As you can see, it's had quite a bit of use now. It's not in the best condition anymore. The graphics still kind of nice through all that, but yeah, it's had about a week's skate, so it's been through a little bit. Before we start the review, I'm gonna quickly get warmed up on the grind pad, and then we'll get back to it. Okay, so I'm gonna start. Oh my god, my hair. I keep forgetting about my hair, and every time I see myself, it shocks me every time. Bloody hell. So the first thing I was going to talk about, which I did slightly mention in the last video, if you've never seen Madness before, or if you've never seen these decks, Madness make the most crazy graphics on the decks. So my one is just, I don't know what it is, it's a black and gold thing, I don't know. A lot of the designs are based on old paintings, and that in itself is pretty cool. So all the designs you'll see are very different to pretty much every single other deck brand out there. I've never seen a brand do similar graphics or anything even on this level. Like I mentioned in the last video, this deck has got little indents. It's got like a little texture to the graphic, which I'm sure other brands have done before, but it just seems that like all the graphics that these guys do are just insane. And they also do like little cool carvings out of the board, which I assume would make the deck a little bit weaker in areas, but it's still cool regardless. So overall, I think that from like a visual point of view, Madness honestly make the best decks out there currently, and the prices aren't too high. So I got this deck for about £55, which is still quite steep for a deck. But then when you look at like Primitive, who got a license with Dragon Ball Z or a partnership or a collab or whatever, and then they brought out some very plain decks of like the Dragon Ball Z characters, and then they were charging like £65 to £70 per deck. That is insane. And honestly, it's also quite lazy because the designs on those decks, which I liked because I'm a big Dragon Ball Z fan anyway, they were just very plain decks and they charged a lot of money. These decks honestly look like they've had so much work put into the visual aspect of them that they are well worth £55. And it almost feels like these decks were made to be put on a wall rather than skated because of how good they look. I actually also just got a Madness deck just for my wall. I made sure that the deck was like a massive width so that I couldn't actually skate it. It's like a 9 7.5, I think, is far too big for me because I didn't want any kind of temptation to skate it in the future because the graphic is so nice. And then the next thing I want to talk about, so the shapes. These guys do a lot of different shapes for the decks. Like, as you can see, mine is like a fishtail. The nose is kind of like thin, a lot thinner than normal like popsicle decks. And then on the sides, these stick out where the wheels are. On both sides, they stick out a little bit. I don't know if you can see that properly. But yeah, so the shape of this deck is very different also to most branded decks currently. You can get, obviously, cruiser decks and fishtail decks from other brands, but these guys do a lot of weird shapes. Very, very uncommon shapes, which I assume they've just kind of designed in-house. And I think that part really isn't for everyone. And I don't honestly think it's for me either, because like most people who have been skating for the past maybe 15 to 20 years have just been using like the modern day popsicle shaped deck, just the normal deck that we all know today. And going to a deck of this shape, I didn't think it would affect me that much when I bought it. But honestly, like the adjustment period to getting used to this kind of shaped deck was quite hard, I would say. I had a lot of stress with certain tricks. One of them being a nose slide. So I'm not the best at nose slides anyway, but I can consistently do nose slides. And on this deck, it took me a long time to get a nose slide. Because of how thin the deck was, it felt like I didn't understand how to do it. It was very strange. I've never really had that of a trick before where it just felt so off to me that I didn't understand it, and it was insanely stressful. I had a session where I was honestly just like screaming because I couldn't do a nose slide. It was awful. But anyway, so the shape of the deck is something that you really need to consider. They do normal shape decks, and they do all the graphics, I think, in normal shape and in kind of like the weird shapes or whatever. But if you're going to go for specifically, say for example, my deck, the one that I'm riding today, then you have to really think about, is it worth it for you, or do you think it'll bother you? The other thing is the fishtail. That took a long time to get used to doing 360 flips and anything that was kind of like back foot dominant, like a big spin or a back 360 or something like that. Even now, like I feel like my 360 flips are not great, whereas for the past maybe 5-6 years, 360 flips have been like my most consistent trick, the trick that I can do, and I've always thought that I could do like a nice 360 flip. But on this deck, I still feel that like after a week, most of my 360 flips are not very nice. I can't seem to pop it right or consistently get the spin. Sometimes I'm going to primo. It just doesn't feel right. Again, it just feels a little bit off. But again, I think that's something that maybe over, if I spent another couple of weeks on this deck, there would be a bit more of a transition period where I'd get used to it a little bit more. But for now, it's still a bit of an issue for me, and at this point I don't feel that I would buy another shaped deck like this again. I would just go back to the kind of modern popsicle deck. But I'm glad I've tried it. I'm glad that I've kind of experienced a different kind of deck, and now I know that like I'm so used to the popsicle decks that I don't want to skate something of this shape. Okay, so we've gone through, I guess, like visually the deck, how it looks, the differences between this and like a standard deck and how that feels. Now I want to talk about, I guess, the actual deck itself in terms of how it feels to ride. So riding this deck feels honestly great, regardless of the tail, the nose, and the differences of the shape. The actual wood itself feels solid. So I've been riding a birdhouse board before this, and it's my first birdhouse board I've ever had. And the only reason I really got it is because in the shop that I bought it from, that was the only deck that I liked graphic-wise that was in my size. Honestly, I didn't really like it. In the first 3 days, it chipped on the nose. I got a massive chip, and that was from not even doing anything insane. It was from skating flat ground and the nose hit the floor and it just chipped. Obviously that could happen to any deck. I really felt that that deck was not very well made. I think it was Lizzie O'Mato's like new deck or whatever. And it never at any point really felt like a solid deck. It never felt like really solid under my feet. Whereas what I can say for this deck, the Madness board, for the week that I've skated it now, it has always felt solid. It doesn't feel like it's going to chip anytime soon. It honestly feels like a really well made solid deck. And that's the main thing for me. If I get a deck, it chips within a couple of days, it starts flexing, then, that just to me feels like money wasted. But £55 for this versus a £45 Birdhouse board, which, you know, within a few days it doesn't feel great anymore. This is like mega value for money in my opinion. Okay, so now my overall impression, I'm gonna kind of condense everything I spoke about into this little section here. So this deck, I really do like it. I like the feel of it. I like how strong it feels. It doesn't feel like it's gonna break anytime soon. I love the designs. The designs are my favorite aspect of this deck. I like the design of this deck more than the feel of the deck. I think when you compare this deck to other deck brands on the market, the value for this deck is insanely high in comparison to other decks. I think that the work that goes into these designs and the board shapes is far more valuable than what a lot of other deck brands are doing. That being said, would I skate this deck again? Probably not, but I would buy and skate this deck again if I bought a popsicle shape. When I'm now thinking about buying my next deck, I would 100% buy a Madness deck again, which I probably will do, but it would be a popsicle shape. I wouldn't buy like this coffin fishtail thing or whatever it is. And one more thing I'll say, like I mentioned before, is that these decks do feel sometimes like they were made for putting on your wall, or that they are like kind of collector's items rather than decks that you should skate. I'm not saying that they don't feel like decks that you should skate. I just think that visually they are so nice. Just the overall design of the deck just feels like something, it feels almost like wrong to skate because it is so nice. It sounds weird saying that because obviously it's a skate deck and it's just a piece of wood, but I would go as far as saying that I think Madness are probably my new favorite deck brand. I don't know if I even really had a favorite deck brand before this, because I feel like for years I've always just kind of gone for whatever graphic felt nice. I never really stuck to a certain brand or bought the same deck twice, but I think with Madness, I would definitely buy more of their decks down the line. So that's the end of the video for today. Hope you enjoyed it. Also, if you enjoyed the haircut, feel free to give me a thumbs up. It really does help. And hopefully next time I'm on camera, my hair is maybe sorted out a little bit. I don't know. Hopefully it's grown back. Maybe, maybe not. We'll have to see. Hopefully see you soon.